everyone, it's Kate here, and today I'm introducing an extra special episode for International Women's Day on Sunday 8th of March. In this episode we speak with Athena Koelmeyer, Managing Director of Workplace Law. She and her business partner and husband Shane have created an awesome culture at Workplace Law. It supports women in the workplace and a generally happy work environment. They drive some amazing sponsorship initiatives for women in sport, and I got the opportunity to deep dive into Athena's journey, how she navigated a traditionally male-dominated space in the legal industry, and how to promote gender equality at work. So to kickstart the episode, we've done something a bit different. We've asked all of our awesome female guests to date to give us one piece of advice. The question was, what advice would you have wanted to hear when starting out in your career? Hope you enjoy the episode, and happy International Women's Day.
Hi all, I'm Shelley, the CEO and co-founder from VTI, and the one piece of career advice that I wish I was given earlier on is that you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have all of your career figured out. You don't have to have how to tackle your role all figured out. And you don't have to have how you would apply yourself in a new role all figured out before you put your application in. It's more about getting your focus, your why, what's important to you, what makes you happy, and allowing the process and the opportunity to take care of itself. But knowing when it comes, to always put yourself in the arena, even if you don't feel ready. You very rarely feel ready, but it doesn't mean that you aren't.
Hi, it's Di and Paula from Shout Social Pages. The one piece of advice we wish we were told was to have confidence enough to invest in ourselves.
To know what value I offer a room or a meeting, for example, going in and perhaps there's people who are older and more experienced than you, or perhaps are intimidating in some way to you, knowing what ideas and concepts you can bring to the room is really, really important, rather than just sitting back and not contributing because you don't feel like you have the same experience.
You do you. I think that to myself at least every day. It's a very empowering thing for me. To me it means, can you just stop worrying about what everybody else is doing? You don't have to compete.
To bring my whole self to work, because that has been my secret sauce for success.
Confidence was the big thing. I feel like I just looked at the numbers of what people got at university, or, a generally smart person, and thought, oh, that person's smart, they're going to go far. But I don't think I realised that it's not all about being book smart, and that it can be, being smart with people and being able to communicate with people and making people feel good, that can be just as essential as actually being book smart. So I'd say just find your skill set and work with that, and don't worry about the things you're not great at. Just concentrate on the things you are good at, because that's someone else's weakness. So just be proud of what you can do and stop stressing about the things you can't do.
Welcome, Athena, to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for our International Women's Day special episode.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you, and we hear that there's some awesome things going on with workplace law, that you guys are supporting and empowering women in lots of different ways, so it'd be really cool to hear a bit more about that. So let's begin by, it'd just be great to get a bit of a background about yourself, Athena, and your career journey.
I think I always probably wanted to be a lawyer. Didn't focus as much as I should have during the HSC, so went on a bit of a roundabout mission to get my law degree. Went and did economics and then did law postgraduate. And I mention that because I think there's a lot of people who freak out that the HSC is their last opportunity ever to do anything in their life, and I am living proof that it is not. So for anybody who is a young person or has a young person in their life out there who thinks that the HSC is the end of the world, it is not. So after that, I really thought that I wanted to be a property lawyer. So I went and got a job in property law, and then I decided that was the worst thing in the whole world, and that my brain was going to rot in my head within a very short period of time. So I took the first litigation job that wound up in my lap, ventured into the city from the suburbs, started working in work health, safety and dust diseases, and really from there transitioned to a full-blown employment lawyer. Started in the workplace relations team of a national practice in the year 2000, just at about the time of the Olympics, when nobody wanted to talk to lawyers, everybody wanted to go to the Olympics. So I thought, oh my God, does anybody do any work around here? But I was, corrected after the Olympics finished. Since then I've thoroughly enjoyed working in workplace relations and work health safety. It seems like yesterday, which I think is a good thing, even though I was admitted in 1988. So it was a very long time ago now, but I've thoroughly enjoyed certainly this last 10 years of my career since I became the Managing Director of Workplace Law, and we've been, my husband and I have been running the practice together with our awesome team.
That's awesome, and I'd love to hear a bit more about workplace law in a little bit, but I was quite interested to know the legal industry is quite male dominated, and it's not really known as an industry that's kind of tends to support women. So I'd like to know if you have any advice for a woman that might be starting off in either the legal industry or an industry similar to that.
Yep. It is something that we talk about in our office. So our team, other than Shane, is entirely female, and that is deliberate. We really think that the law is generally, as you say, an unfriendly place for females, and you can tell from the stats in the industry, it's very hard to find a female partner, let alone a female lawyer with more than 5 years experience, because either they've looked around and said, this is just not the environment for me, I don't want to spend my life working this way, or they've made the decision to go off and have children and worked out that the working environment is really not conducive to flexibility or other sorts of support mechanisms, or they're getting the side eye from male partners who feel like, flexibility is not something that the firm wants to offer. So it certainly is something that, we really think that the law can be done better. And we have made a deliberate decision not only to recruit women, but to try and work in a way that eliminates all of the things that I find are unattractive about the legal industry. So focus on individual goals, and focus on how much money you can make, and focus on how many people you can supervise. None of that happens at workplace law, and yet we are a productive, happy workplace. So we've got a pretty flat structure. We have associates based on the experience. They deserve that title, but all of us have the same size office. All of us work in the same way. All of us delegate work when it is appropriate, and it just seems to work that way. So our goals are team goals. Our work is collaborative. The clients are the firm's clients, not my clients, and it is certainly not, the Shane and Athena show. That workplace law is, we like to think, part of everybody's DNA who works there.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear. It's such a contrast to experiences that friends of mine have had in a similar sort of role. So that's really awesome that there are places out there that really support women in that flexibility.
And I think probably that was a long-winded way of answering your question, which is make an intelligent choice about where you're going to go and work. Talk to recruiters, talk to your mates, network your little bottoms off, because there are good places to work in the law, and you don't necessarily have to sit there and feel like, all you're ever going to do is work in data rooms and look at discovered documents for your whole life. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and I really hope that more and more firms start to adopt the mindset that you guys have. So I kind of just heard about some of the awesome things that you guys have been doing from chatting to Shane. So I wonder if you'd just maybe tell us about maybe some of the campaigns you've been running. I know that you do some things with women's sports teams, so it'd be great to hear a bit more.
We're completely enthusiastic about women's sport, and that is largely driven out of our experience with law. So we are extremely pro-choice. So if you want to be a lawyer, you should have the opportunity to, and certainly people before my time, I'm old but not that old, paved the way so that there were the first female lawyers and the first female barristers and the first female judges and all of those very exciting things. And professional sport, just because we run our firm like a team, professional sports for women seemed to be something that the choice was just not there. And that absolutely rankles me and indeed Shane. And the concept that we're focused on is anybody who wants to have a career as a professional, whether it is as a lawyer or in particular at the moment our campaign about female athletes, should have the choice to do so. There shouldn't be silly things blocking the pathway, such as this particular club doesn't have female toilets. Like, that is nonsense. So, and that removes a choice from a female athlete at that particular area to be able to go and play sport. So our whole focus on it, we talk about sporting teams a lot. All of us are sort of sports nuts, where there's a lot of sport conversation goes on in the office. And then talking about the female teams with some of the clubs that we work with, there was a comment made to us that our particular female team only gets paid what the sponsors pay. So the sponsors that sponsor the team, all of the money went to the women, but otherwise they were not paid. And we went, well, luckily we are in a position where we can do something about that. So if we can do something about it, we should, right? So we did, and sponsored that team. That made a difference. That enabled them in particular to have something as innocuous as an end of team dinner that they would have otherwise had to pay for themselves, and knowing that they're not really getting paid, that's a lot of money to contribute to something that's fun but coming out of your rent money. So from there, from little things, big things have grown, and we're now delighted to be associated with our new campaign with the Sydney Roosters and their women's teams from youth all the way through. So the pathway is clear, and the Roosters have done an amazing job at making sure that female athletes, wanting to play rugby league, know I'm going to play here, then I'm going to play here, and then I'm going to play here, and here's my pathway. And we're delighted to sponsor the club with that effort all the way through.
That's awesome. It's quite interesting to hear that gender inequality does exist. Sometimes we don't even notice it, and it's things like you mentioned, the ladies' bathroom not being available at a club. It's things like that sort of that kind of highlight that, and it might be a little thing, but it's something that's not enabling us to move forward. So yeah. So the Key Pay team have actually been reviewing some trends across some aggregated data from our user base, and we're in the midst of creating a gender pay gap report, which is super interesting and quite shocking actually. The results that we've seen so far quite clearly suggest that there still is a gender pay gap basically. One of our findings was that I think it was 16 out of 18 industries that we used in the sample pay men more than women per hour. So I suppose the question here is, why do you think this issue still exists today?
I'm shaking my head and rolling my eyes. I know it's a podcast, but
good to get the context.
I honestly struggle to understand this. I accept that it is real, and I accept that it's out there. I honestly don't understand why. In particular, being an industrial lawyer, we have awards, right, with minimum wages, right? So I mean, the award doesn't care whether you're a boy or a girl, or choose not to identify. It's that is the work that is the money that is payable for the work that is done in that classification. So I struggle with why people who are doing exactly the same job working side by side, some are paid more than others. I know there's a lot of study that has gone into this, and I wonder if certainly anecdotally. And in particular in law, men are often a lot more aggressive and demanding in terms of, I have delivered these things and therefore you should pay me now. Women, I think, are not necessarily wired that way and will not necessarily march into HR or up to the supervising partner and demand to be recognised with, a reward of some kind. It shouldn't fall to women, though, to have to behave that way in order to achieve, equality in pay for the work that they perform. I hope that it is just a legacy thing, and I guess coming back to sporting teams, that sort of gives me hope, because you can see now through cricket and football, like the Matildas are now going to be paid the same for representing their country as the Socceroos are. So that is a world first and sort of a little bit groundbreaking, but maybe that will lead the way and make employers think twice about the fact that, that person and that person are performing the same function and role and task and should be paid the same.
Yeah, I think even it's something that people might not even realise until you actually see the stats right in front of you and realise it's something that still has to be done to sort of close that gap. So you guys at Workplace Law have done some cool things to sort of support women in work. Are there any other organisations or industries that are doing really cool things to fly the flag for gender equality? And if so, can you give some examples of things we could take inspiration from?
Look, I think at Workplace Law we are privileged, and I'm grateful every day that we get to work across such a wide variety of industries. Like, we work with airlines, we work with warehouses, we work with logistics companies. And the vast majority of employers that we work with are really focused on trying to do the right thing. Like, if there is an underpayment, it's not because they're deliberately trying to rip people off. It's accidental, and those things happen. And, you know, unfortunately, not at KeyPay, but at other organisations, I'm sure payroll errors are made.
Love the plug.
But, you know, I think that across the board, certainly the people that we deal with are aware that a happy working environment will cater for, insofar as it's possible when you're a service delivery model, you've still got to sell your product or get out there and, you know, deliver your service or any of those sort of things. If you can support your employees, then they might actually stay with you, as opposed to having 2 years and then turnover, which happens in some industries. So there is considerable effort, and I think across a wide range of industries, for people to for employers to retain employees. And that might be something as simple as, hey, I know your child is an awesome soccer player, so sure, we can work with you so that you can leave at 3 o'clock every day and, you know, do the big schlep through the traffic to support your child in that way. And those little things become big things that might lead to an initiative across the whole business. And then that creates a fun, happy working environment where people feel like they are individually recognised and their contributions are noted, and that the employer works with them as an individual to provide some flexibility and support when they need it. So I can't really pick one particular industry that's doing things that are awesome. You know, the industries that heavily focus on flexibility sometimes also heavily focus on not regular work. So, you know, there's good things and bad things about all of that sort of stuff. And I also don't think that necessarily it's women who always need flexibility either. But, I think the level of awareness is rising, and we, in our very small bubble and very small corner of the world as workplace law, feel like, you know, there are little things that you can do that make a big difference to people that you work with. And I think the general tone of the employers that we work with is the same.
Yeah, sure. And again, as you said, it doesn't have to all be about including women. It's been an inclusive place for everyone, making work a happy place to be. And I think, that's how you retain employees, no matter what gender or race or wherever they're from. So,
Correct.
yeah.
Yep.
It's actually quite cool with KeyPay. We're very flexible and sort of very remote first, and you often see the guys in the office going to pick up the kids, and it's cool to see, because I think you wouldn't see that in a lot of organisations, male or female. So I think in order to, if we give that flexibility to our employees, then that helps their family. It helps maybe their wife or girlfriend might be off like doing different hours at a different role, and you know that's how you enable people. So it's really awesome.
But also, that is a little thing that has removed a gender gap, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because all of a sudden, you know, a man who might in a more traditional working environment feel that they were the man and they couldn't because they would get side eye, go and pick up the kids. Those restrictions don't exist here.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, you see perhaps more equality in the parenting and the family environment and all the rest of it. That's been driven by an employer just going, hey, you know what, there are things we don't care about. And, you know, as long as you're getting your job done, then we don't really care if you bugger off at 3 o'clock and then clock back on. But, you know, that's a great example of a reasonably small initiative that's gone a long way to make the world a better place.
Yeah, also almost removes that gender stereotype altogether. So
Correct.
Yeah, well, that was great. We've got a couple of quick fire questions now from some keen people in the office today. So the first question is, in your experience, what positive changes have you seen for gender equality from the beginning of your career until now? So I'm sure it's changed a lot.
It has changed a lot. And as I said, I'm not super old, but I'm old enough to have seen a lot of things change in law. Certainly when I was a young lawyer, there were still judges who would not not recognise a female solicitor if they tried to appear before the judge if they were not wearing a skirt.
Wow.
So obviously things have come a long way since that time. I mean, other things that have changed a lot, which have made, I think, the law a better place for females to practice. There are lots more things now that are done online, so it doesn't actually matter what time you do it, or indeed, like Kipe, where you do it. You can work from home, you can subject to confidentiality regimes, etc., being in place. So those abilities to juggle where and when you work, I think have made a difference to if women want to stay in the law, which typically they don't after they've had children, which is sad, then those options are more readily available than they were when I started.
So there's been a bit of a change in mindset, first of all, and also the internet and digital just enabling people to be more flexible. Yeah,
Yep.
Awesome. So the theme of this year's International Women's Day is Each for Equal. So what conscious efforts can businesses make to ingrain a gender equal culture?
It doesn't have to be complicated. Like for us at Workplace Law, we don't have to account to a board. I don't have to account to a whole bunch of other partners around the world. We've got relative freedom to make decisions about recruitment strategy, and our recruitment strategy is we prefer to recruit female lawyers. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people out there who will say, oh, but you should pick the best person for the job. Well, we do. But we think the best person for the job is usually a female lawyer, and certainly we've been proven right over sort of the last 10 years. So those are small things that I think if organisations sat down and just maybe without the restrictions of a recruitment policy or maybe even talking to HR, if you are a business owner or operator or a COO or a CEO, what things might actually work for you? And, we'll work out the policy stuff later. There's, always a way that you can approach these things. And it could be something as simple as, I know I have a culture of rewarding or thinking people are valuable if they come in really early and then they leave really late. But maybe in my new office, I'm not going to have offices or I'm not going to have desks, so people wouldn't necessarily know if people were here, for 15 hours a day. And would that actually change the culture? And the answer is probably yes. So it can be something small and organic about the way that the business is run that would actually wind up, creating a more favourable working environment for everyone. But, also, if you want to attract really good, loyal, hardworking female employees, you have to think about what good, hardworking, loyal female employees want. And there may be people like me who don't have kids, but there may be plenty of people who do have kids. There may have people who have the majority of the parenting burden. There may be people who have none. But let's say anecdotally that the squeaky wheel has gotten the most grease in terms of reward and recognition and remuneration typically. How can we shake that up so that we are rewarding, recognising and remunerating people who don't necessarily make all the noise better? Like what factors should we be thinking about in terms of our remuneration strategy? And maybe it's something about not who bills the most or who spends the most time here or who has the biggest team, but maybe it's something else like how they're contributing to the overall workplace environment. What mentoring are they doing of other people to make sure that, what efforts are they making in terms of mental health and wellbeing for young people in the workplace, because we know that's a problem. So, I think it's just a case of making a really dedicated effort to think about, what you think female employees want, maybe ask them. That would be nice. And then, think again about strategies of your traditional way of doing things and whether or not that's still a good fit for you.
That's a great answer. I think sometimes you just overlook the power of it's the same with customers, just asking what they want and shaping your strategy towards that. That's great. How can men be more involved with raising awareness against gender bias in the workplace?
This is a great question for Shane because, he is probably long-suffering. No, he gets to talk about sport a lot, so he should be pretty happy. But he is a great example of a male champion of, professional women. He has driven the whole pathways plan with female athletes. He thinks it's absolutely wrong that people shouldn't get a chance to play sport, which is an important part of the Australian landscape. And he's completely, thoroughly, totally supported having a female-only, other than him, workplace for all of the time that we have been running workplace law. I think what I don't want to talk for him, but what I understand he finds rewarding out of it is that he's actually making a difference, as opposed to, making more money or building an empire or employing more people or having a bigger office or buying a bigger boat. There's a genuine contribution to making our team, which is not enormous, but our team's lives better, and a focus on trying to make our people the best possible people that they can be. And that is something that he finds rewarding as a male champion of, female gender equality and, I guess, diversity in all workplaces.
Yeah.
It's probably an answer for him. I've done my best, Shane.
I think you painted a great picture of Shane, and I can confirm that he is awesome. Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much for telling us a bit more about workplace law, the amazing things that you guys are doing with female athletes and just your workforce in general. So it's been really great to have you. Would you like to tell the audience where we can follow you on Twitter, or how do we find out more about workplace law?
We have a highly entertaining Instagram, which is at Workplace Law AU, all one word, lowercase. But really, probably the best way to find out more about us is through our website, which is workplacelaw.com.au.
Awesome.
You can probably tell our sense of humour from the blogs that we write, and there's a whole page dedicated to our Female Champions program if you want to know more about that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
This is Neve.
And this is Kate. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, why don't you share it with a friend?
And if you really liked it, subscribe and give us a rating.
If you want to find out more about KeyPay, go to keypay.com.
See you next time.